Good morning, District Team. Dan Scarrow here. It is Thursday morning, and we continue on our adventure of learning about video together. I'm learning some interesting things this week. I had this video shot twice yesterday. The first time I was within about 5 seconds of having a video that I really think would have been great. It's too bad you're not going to see it. I had it almost done and I received a phone call. The downside of shooting video on your iPhone, even though the iPhone is a brilliant platform, as many of you know, is that when you receive a phone call, your video is done. And so that was one of the adventures I had yesterday. The other was a video that was completed and we were getting ready to send out to you, and then our governor in the state of Minnesota issued an executive order yesterday afternoon that was relevant enough that I felt like I needed to reshoot the video. I'm learning all kinds of things even this morning. I've been here since about 6, shooting different versions of the video, and I keep learning new things all the time. It's great to be with you again, and I want to briefly address some housekeeping items with you and for you, and then I want to talk with you about 2 key parts of leadership. The first, these are areas that we'll potentially revisit together on a regular basis in these days as I come to you on video. The first is leading yourself effectively. Leading yourself is an incredibly important part of your leadership, and we're going to talk about that together. The second is leading others. This opportunity that we have in front of us creates an unprecedented situation in which we can lead differently and better. And so I've been jotting some notes to myself, as I often do in a notebook, about life and leadership. And I want to share some of those thoughts with you, and hopefully they'll be helpful to you. First, the housekeeping items. The first is in regards to this last Sunday. Most Sundays are busy for me, but this particular Sunday, ironically enough, was one of the busiest I've had. I got to participate in 10 of your worship services, and I just want you to know I am so impressed with your willingness to press out into territory that is new and uncomfortable. And many of you did a great job on Sunday, and I think all of us were wrestling with some level of discomfort around shooting a video in an empty sanctuary or some other location, and all the nuances of shooting effective video. I'm just proud of all of you for pressing out into territory that's new and difficult. I want to remind you of something that you probably know, but maybe you haven't expressed this way. Everything you've ever become exceptional or excellent at, you failed at first. That's a truth that spans the entire course of your lifetime. Everything you've learned how to do, including eating and walking and relating and everything you have become good at, you failed at first. As we get older, as we become adults, we become less comfortable with the failure journey that's required to achieve excellence. And so for some of us, this feels really uncomfortable and we're not enjoying it. But you should just know that learning a new skill and becoming exceptional in anything requires failure. And so it's a great reminder. Some of us have stopped pressing out into new things because we dislike that feeling of failure. But in these days, we're reacquainting ourselves with it, and maybe it's something that we can remember as we go forward. Let's keep growing. Let's keep pressing towards excellence. Let's keep fumbling the ball. Let's keep messing up the videos as we make our way to excellence. Well done, all of you. This week you're going to be receiving another link in this particular publication that we'll send out to you that'll have this video link in it. That additional video link is one I promised last week, and I've asked Kyle Mogstadt to give us leadership around gathering 3 pastors in a video venue and discussing what they're doing and how it's going, and then publishing that information for your benefit. And so that'll be published as this video comes out. And Kyle's done a great job on this initial video, and I appreciate the input of the 3 pastors that have given us their insight, and I hope that'll be helpful to you. We'll continue to do that week to week and provide new ideas for you as you're navigating this uncertain territory and new territory that we're all in. Also this week, some of you, perhaps many of you, have already received a phone call from one of our team members here at the district office. I've divided all the churches up, and I've asked our team members, including myself, to make a series of calls to just check in. How are things going? How are you feeling in these days? What are you learning? What are you struggling with? What are you going to try next week? And so we're all on a learning journey together. We want to do two things. We want to communicate, let you know that we're here, that we're thinking about you and praying for you, but also as we talk to you, we're gleaning ideas that we potentially can share with other people. And we want this to just be a giant learning community as we're all learning together how to navigate this new season that we're in. I mentioned that yesterday a order came out here in Minnesota that is relevant to a vast number of our churches, but not all. Some of you are watching this and you're in North and South Dakota, so this is not relevant to you yet. But in Minnesota, our governor yesterday afternoon issued an executive order, and I know it's bad form to read stuff on video, but I'm going to read some of that to you because some of you may not be aware of this yet, and you may not be aware of the details of it yet. So let me read part of this. So beginning on Friday, March 27th, 2020 at 11:59 p.m., that's tomorrow, through Friday, April 10th, that's 2 weeks from this coming Friday, at 5 p.m., all persons currently living within the state of Minnesota are ordered to stay at home or in their place of residence except to engage in activities in critical sector work. That critical sector work is outlined in a couple of different ways, and there's exemptions to that. And one of those exemptions is for faith leaders and workers. And this category includes officials, workers, and leaders in houses of worship and other places of religious expression or fellowship, wherever their services may be needed. Additionally, it says this category also includes workers necessary to plan, record, and distribute online or broadcast content to community members. So there is an exemption in this order for yourself as leaders and pastors, and for the team necessary for you to produce and distribute your online experiences. So I want to let you know that that's has come out. It's effective tomorrow, and those are some of the details. We will include what I have read and a few more pieces of it in the publication that we send out with this video. As we've been talking to some of you, you've been bumping into some issues, and one of the issues that I'll just mention as a housekeeping issue is that many of you are experiencing some tension or issues with the CCLI licensing for your songs. And you should know, as we've done a little bit of research around this, that most or all of you should have a license to project your songs and use them on Sunday mornings. There is an additional license that's not very costly. It's an annual license necessary for streaming. And so if you do not already have that, you need to make yourself aware of the amount, and you need to go ahead and pay for that streaming license. For most of you, it's going to be in the $50 to $60 a year range. And we just want you to know if that's going to be an issue in any way, shape, or form, the district stands ready to help you buy that. And so we'll pay for it. So you just need to let us know if you need that assistance, and we're happy to make that happen. But I want to encourage you to check your CCLI license, make sure that it is sufficient for your streaming efforts. So any music that you stream online needs to be underneath that license. If you opt to just produce and distribute your sermons, then that license would not be necessary. So it's only as you stream music. So as we talk together, I mentioned there's two key categories that I want to talk to you about very briefly. And the first is this category of leadership that I call self-leadership, or leading yourself. And many of us don't think about this very much because it happens somewhat intuitively and we don't give a great deal of thought to it. But the most important leadership that you give in the world is the leadership you give to yourself. And the most important energy that you can spend in any given day is on the leadership that you give to yourself. Now, all of us know that you won't spend the most leadership energy on yourself, but you should spend your best leadership energy on yourself. And there's a reason for that, because when you lead yourself really well All of your other leadership flows out of that. All your impact, all your influence, all your relationships flow out of your ability to lead yourself. Leading yourself is the disciplines that you choose when nobody's looking. It's the habits you develop when nobody forces you to. It's the learning and skills you develop when nobody makes you do it. And it is also the spiritual intimacy that you choose when nobody's making you do it. See, the thing about self-leadership is it's the part of your leadership that nobody pats you on the back for. Nobody says an attaboy. It's stuff that happens when nobody's looking, but it defines your leadership in really critical ways. I've been jotting notes to myself, as I often do, about my leadership and leadership in general in these days. And a couple of observations I have for you that might be helpful as this time of crisis and transition is upon us. One truth that helps us diagnostically is that what we believe becomes most obvious in crisis. So the question I have for each of you is what's emerging in your spirit about what you actually believe? It's one thing to say what you believe, it's entirely another to live out what you believe. We all know that to be true. And in these days, what do you believe about God? What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about life? What do you believe about others? As you get some pressure that descends upon you, those beliefs emerge, and they emerge in often ways that we don't expect. So what are you seeing in your own life? What do you really believe? As the possibility of financial issues arise for you, what's that doing to you? What we believe emerges in crisis, and so my question for you as a leader is, what are you seeing? And what adjustments do you need to make so that your belief is more what you actually believe and less what you say you believe? We're all going through that in these days, and I am, and you are, and I just want to make you aware of it. Leading yourself is important. The second part of self-leadership, or maybe the second diagnostic question I've been asking myself is, who I am in crisis becomes most obvious. So the question I have for myself is, who am I in crisis? What emerges? Am I more selfish or less selfish? Am I more irritated or less irritated? Am I kind or unkind? Am I hopeful or am I fearful? I've been paying attention to these things in my own life and jotting notes down, and I'd encourage you to do the same. Who are you actually in crisis? And if there's some adjustments that you need to make, this is a great time to make them. What we believe becomes most obvious in crisis, and who we are becomes obvious in crisis. And this actually just provides an opportunity for us to become aware and then make the changes that we would like to make. Self-leadership, my friends, as men and women who are leading in our district, your leadership of yourself is critical. And I'm inviting you to do a great job with that first before you lead other people. I've been jotting some notes on about leading others. I've been asking myself a question that maybe many of you have been asking, and that is, so how do we reach every man, woman, and child when our primary together meeting environments are gone? What does that look like? How do we disciple people when our primary methodology of getting together and communicating and sharing information and downloading belief systems and theology, when that goes away? How do we disciple people? Well, one of the things that I've been thinking about and writing down is that discipleship is often a process of helping people ask the right questions and then find answers to those questions. Discipleship is not as much about telling people, although there's certainly a learning component to discipleship. But discipleship is the transformation of a life, and that happens most when people make discoveries and implement them. So what questions could we be asking our people in these days that would help them with their discipleship journey? A couple suggestions I've got for you, and I'm sure many of you would come up with more of these excellent questions, and please feel free to share them. One question I jotted down as I was thinking about discipling somebody who might be experiencing this crisis and creating a fertile opportunity for their growth is, who am I when life doesn't go when life doesn't go the way I hope it would? Who am I when life doesn't go the way I hope it would? That's a great question for all of us to ask, but it's a great question for you to ask your people. Invite them into this self-leadership journey and invite them to ask the question, what's actually happening in my spirit as I'm experiencing this crisis? And do I like what I see? And if I don't, what changes should I make? The second question I've been giving some thought to is, I'm sure many people are struggling with the idea of peace in these days and probably joy. And so these two questions are germane, are helpful. How do I find and sustain peace when life doesn't go as I hope it would? The next question, obviously, you can see it coming, is how can I find and sustain joy when life doesn't go as I hope it would? You see, Scripture is full of stories. It is filled with instruction and direction and coaching on peace and joy in crisis times. You see, church, we have the opportunity to meet the world at a place where they're experiencing crisis like they've never experienced it. And suddenly the instruction of God's Word becomes more and more relevant. These are some questions that I'd invite you to ask your church family, your leadership. Help them answer the questions that they're asking in these days, whether they know they're asking them or not. So first, you've got to help them articulate the question, and then you've got to help them find an answer. This is discipleship. You see, discipleship is possible in these days, and it's possible at a new level, and reaching new people with the gospel is possible in these days. I'm hearing stories about some of you your reach is expanding in these days. You have 100, 200, 500, 5,000 people who are watching your videos. Friends, this is a new day of influence and impact for you. Will you give some thought to what your video content should look like as it reaches a larger group of people, and as it may reach people who don't have faith right now? What are some of the things that you should be saying? You see, your audience is changing, and that's a really good thing. I want you to know that we're praying for you regularly here at the district office. We're thinking about you often, and we want to do everything we can to help you in this season adapt, respond, and more importantly, to expand your influence. There are 6.8 million people that we're responsible for in the North Central District. This is an unprecedented opportunity to reach every man, woman, and child in ways that we haven't in the past. I look forward to this journey with you, and I look forward to hearing your stories as you press into the uncomfortable and do things that you've never done before. God bless you.